When people talk about chickens or gamefowl, one of the most common things you will hear is the word bloodline. You may hear names like sweater, hatch, roundhead, gray, kelso, and many others. These names have been passed down for generations among breeders. But at the same time, you may also hear terms like white legs, naked neck, red feathers, spangled feathers, or yellow legs. And sometimes these are also called a line. This creates an important question. Is that really a bloodline? Or is it simply a trait? Understanding the difference between a true bloodline and a visible trait is one of the most important lessons for anyone who wants to learn about poultry breeding. Many beginners become confused because not every physical characteristic represents a true family line. So in this video, we will explore an important topic. What exactly is a bloodline? What is a trait? Why do people sometimes mix the two? And how can beginners avoid confusion when learning about different types of chickens? Let's explore the science, the history, and the practical side of this topic. What is a bloodline? To begin, we must understand the meaning of the word bloodline. A bloodline is a family group of chickens that share a common ancestry and have been carefully maintained through selective breeding over many generations. A true bloodline is not defined by just one physical feature. Instead, it is defined by a combination of characteristics, including body structure, feather pattern, temperament, stamina, growth rate, behavior, and overall consistency across generations. In traditional poultry breeding, experienced breeders maintain these families through careful selection and controlled mating practices. Over time, these consistent characteristics become associated with a specific name. For example, many well-known poultry families were developed by dedicated breeders who spent years refining their stock. These names became identifiers of a breeding program, not just a color or physical appearance. That is why true bloodlines often carry the name of the breeder or the region where they were developed. In other words, a bloodline represents history, selection, and continuity across generations. What is a trait? Now, let's talk about the other side of the discussion. Traits. A trait is simply a physical or genetic characteristic that an animal may possess. Traits can include things such as feather color, leg color, comb type, body size, feather patterns, or even behavioral tendencies. Unlike bloodlines, traits can appear in many different families of chickens. For example, yellow legs may appear in several different breeding lines. Spangled feathers may also appear in multiple genetic backgrounds. Even special features such as a naked neck can appear in many different flocks depending on genetics. Because of this, a single trait alone does not automatically define a bloodline. It simply describes one feature of the bird. This distinction is very important. A bloodline is a family history. A trait is simply a characteristic. Why beginners often confuse the two? Many beginners enter the poultry world by observing birds visually. Naturally, the first things they notice are feather colors, leg colors, body shape, comb types. Because these features are easy to see, people sometimes assume that any visible difference represents a different bloodline. But in reality, the situation is more complex. Two chickens may look similar but come from completely different breeding backgrounds. And two birds from the same bloodline may sometimes look slightly different due to natural genetic variation. This is why experienced breeders rely not only on appearance, but also on pedigree records and breeding history. Without that historical knowledge, it becomes very easy to confuse traits with true family lines. The role of selective breeding. Selective breeding plays a major role in how bloodlines are formed. When breeders select birds for specific qualities, generation after generation, those qualities gradually become more consistent. Over time, the group begins to develop a recognizable identity. But even within established lines, traits may still vary. Genetics always introduces a degree of diversity. That is why professional breeders focus on overall quality and consistency, rather than a single physical feature. They evaluate the bird as a complete package. This approach helps maintain the integrity of a breeding line. Examples of traits that are often misunderstood. There are many traits that are sometimes mistaken for bloodlines. One example is feather coloration. Certain feather patterns may appear distinctive, but color alone does not always represent a specific lineage. Another example is leg color. Leg color can vary widely and may be influenced by multiple genetic factors. Some birds may also have unusual physical characteristics, such as crested heads, feathered legs, or unique neck features. These traits can appear in different populations, depending on the genes present in the breeding stock. Because of this, identifying a bloodline requires more than simply observing appearance. Why accurate knowledge matters. Understanding the difference between bloodlines and traits is important for several reasons. First, it helps breeders make more informed decisions. When people know the actual background of their birds, they can plan breeding programs more responsibly. Second, it helps preserve heritage poultry knowledge. Many traditional breeding families represent decades of careful work by dedicated breeders. Recognizing the difference between a true lineage and a simple trait helps preserve that history. Third, it helps beginners avoid misinformation. The poultry community contains many stories, traditions, and interpretations. Learning the fundamentals helps people navigate these discussions with greater clarity. The importance of pedigree records. Serious breeders often keep pedigree records. A pedigree documents the ancestry of birds across multiple generations. These records help breeders understand where their birds came from, what characteristics are being passed down, and how to maintain consistency in future generations. Without records, it becomes difficult to determine whether a bird truly belongs to a particular bloodline or simply resembles one. Pedigree tracking is one of the most reliable tools for preserving breeding history. Respecting poultry heritage. Around the world, poultry breeding has a long cultural history. Different regions develop their own families of chickens based on local preferences, climate conditions, and breeder expertise. These traditions are part of agricultural heritage. Understanding bloodlines as historical breeding families helps honor the work of those who developed them. At the same time, recognizing traits as natural genetic characteristics helps us appreciate the diversity found within poultry populations. Both concepts are important, but they serve different purposes. Conclusion. So let's return to the original question. Is that a bloodline or just a trait? The answer depends on history, breeding records, and consistency across generations. A bloodline represents a family lineage developed through careful breeding over time. A trait represents one individual characteristic that may appear in many different families. Understanding this difference helps beginners learn more accurately and helps experienced breeders maintain the integrity of their work. Poultry breeding is both a science and a tradition. By studying its principles carefully, we can better appreciate the remarkable diversity found in chickens around the world. If you enjoy learning about poultry history, genetics, and responsible breeding practices, make sure to subscribe to Chicken Matter Talks. This channel is dedicated to exploring the fascinating heritage and knowledge behind chickens around the world. And we would love to hear from you. In the comments below, tell us, what topic would you like us to explore next? Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.